Aloha and good afternoon. Thanks for joining us here in the H&N Digital Center. I'm Dylan Ancheta alongside Ashley Nagaoka and our very own DARYL HUFF. Honolulu Mayor Rick Blangiardi is wrapping up his third State of the City address.
That's right. The mayor is focusing on what he's calling Honolulu's top wicked problems. It's a term that they used to describe these challenges that are difficult to deal with and that affect, multiple communities. This is what he had to say about housing and homelessness.
And we began by inviting developers, nonprofits, affordable housing experts, and stakeholders to these meetings to help us better understand the history and complexity of our housing shortage. We wanted answers to the following questions. What were the obstacles getting in our way? Our answers to those questions led to the creation of several new programs. First, we developed a bill to incentivize small lot owners to build affordable housing projects throughout our communities, especially in the urban core. Bill 1, which was our administration's first piece of legislation, provides financial incentives after housing units have been constructed and are ready for occupancy. We now have 1 completed, 5 under construction, 3 with permits in hand, and momentum is growing because we have more than 30 projects and counting in the pipeline today. And to further incentivize affordable housing development on small lots, Governor Green has proposed matching $10 million to our city funds. Governor, your proposal has exceptional potential to stimulate additional small lot construction. Homelessness has plagued our city for years, for decades. And when we took office, we knew our approach to handling the homeless crisis needed systemic change. CORE's mission is to engage and improve the quality of life for all people on the streets through compassion, empathy, and professionalism. Based in Chinatown, CORE today employs a team of 30 people, led by the unrelenting force of Dr. Jim Ireland, that consists today of 2 program managers, 4 supervisors, 7 community health workers, 1 physician, 2 nurses, 11 EMTs, and 3 support staff, providing most of their care on the streets, in parks, and anywhere homeless individuals can be found.
And in fact, happening right now, Mayor Rick Blangiardi is still finishing up his speech. Let's give you a few moments to listen into what he's saying.
Created a dedicated early childhood coordinator position because we strongly believe that all children should have equal access to high quality early childhood opportunities. And to serve in that role, we were very fortunate to find someone with the knowledge and experience that local families will be able to count on. Ted Burke brings to the city a 30-year career in this area. He knows how to level the playing field when it comes to equitable access to early childhood opportunities. And he knows how to engage families and communities as partners for innovation. But Ted knows, and we know, that 1 person is not enough. That's why we're announcing today the city's plan to establish an Office of Early Childhood Development to work with the public and private sectors.
Right there, you just heard him say he is establishing priorities for early childhood development. For more on this analysis now, let's bring in our DARYL HUFF. DARYL, Mayor Blangiardi has been speaking for over about an hour at this point. That speech started around 11 o'clock. He's really kind of outlining a lot of things in his speech. What are some key takeaways for you?
I think that the amount of time he spent talking about homelessness and housing really were hitting the priorities for most people in this city. I think that what struck me about them the most was how much he emphasizes this collaboration. He spent the first 3 pages of his speech just introducing everybody there, including the mayor, the other mayors, the governor, all these other folks. And I think that's sort of his style now, and it's probably always been his style. Ash and I, we worked with him for many years, is to bring in a lot of people on a problem. That was always his style. It's clearly what he's doing now.
Yeah, and bringing Josh Green into this, having the state contribute to helping solve the city's problems, that's also big as well that he mentioned, gave him a shout out and everything.
Yeah, I think that what's really markedly different between this mayor and other mayors that we've had is that you don't see the political rivalries at play so much. Like with Caldwell, it was always who's Caldwell going to run against, who he's run against in the past. There were lots of grudges to deal with. Mufi Hanneman, there was always grudges to deal with and old rivalries, and is he going to run against me, and so on. Keep in mind, Rick Blangiardi's close friend Vicky Cayetano ran against Josh Green for governor, and it was a pretty nasty campaign, but all that's sort of forgotten now, and he's giving the governor credit, asking for support from the governor, and this interstate and city relationship is really key to solving an awful lot of problems. The siloing of the state and the city has been a chronic issue for decades.
Yeah, going back to, his list of wicked problems, what else stood out to you?
I think that what's interesting is his willingness to recognize how messed up government is. And that's what he keeps talking about. The wicked problems, that's messed up government. Government is not easy. This is a challenge. And he takes it on and he's saying, look, in order for us to address this challenge, there are systemic problems that we need to fix. So he's talking about reorganizing city departments. He's talking about reorganizing DPP, the Department of Planning and Permitting, breaking that apart. He's talking about, and I think he's gotten to this part, but in his speech he talks about setting aside a special first responders department for EMS and ocean safety. And so a number of times he set up task forces to study what's wrong and what to fix. He was very specific about DPP in that. So I think you see him recognizing that you can't just wave a magic wand over the city's problems and have them go away. You have to break it up, rebuild it, and start again.
And in fact, Daryl, this is some of the outlines, some of the wicked problems outlined in this slide provided by the city. You see the bullet points there, persistent problems that repeatedly plague the city. Incomplete, contradictory, have changing requirements. And we also know he is facing several of these persistent problems, including staffing at HPD. How do we handle homelessness here? So a lot of problems discussed here today.
Yeah, I think that what you've really got is this speech. It is a very long speech, just got to say. He didn't avoid anything. He also talked about rail. And one thing that comes through in this speech, I think, is his excitement in dealing with these things. He's legitimately excited about this thing or that thing, and he's legitimately excited about reorganizing departments, which doesn't sound like that much fun, but he seems to be excited about it. I think one of the things that he got a big round of applause for was pointing out the progress on rail. And as a mayor who ran on sort of the conservative side of the spectrum, a lot of people were kind of surprised by how much he has embraced the rail project. He calls it the most fundamental infrastructure project of our time. And he's very excited about it getting to Middle Street, pointing out that it's going to reach two of our biggest employment centers, Pearl Harbor and the airport, by 2 years from this summer. And so he's legitimately excited about what he's doing. And I think that that's catching on with people, and I think the reason he can be like that is because he's not a traditional politician all mired in all of these rivalries that so many have been before him.
Yeah, thank you so much for your insight on this, Daryl. We also know of another state of the county address happening today, and that was over on Kauai. Let me go ahead and play out some of what Kauai Mayor Derek Kawakami said in his speech.
The goal of this year's budget is to continue shaping a strong foundation that future generations can stand on. We are doing this in line with our core values by 1, paying down our debts while avoiding additional debt service or tax increases. We are ensuring that the bulk of our tax burden is paid by non-residents. And we are tackling necessary upgrades to our aging infrastructure. Large CIP projects that have been deferred for decades, all while delivering on the day-to-day county services our community expects. In partnership with our budget team, today we present an operating budget of $312 million and a capital improvement program of $90 million. While we know we cannot solve all our island's issues, our operating budget aims to meet the community's expectations with a focus on infrastructure, and infrastructure.
And Kawakami also emphasized he wants to improve infrastructure on Kauai, such as culverts and bridges, as well as pave those roadways to create a shared use path from Waimea to Kekaha to connect the island's west side communities. And as we mentioned yesterday on This Is Now, Hawaii Island Mayor Mitch Roth held his State of the County yesterday, so we want to share some of his thoughts from his address.
We do it through building resilience capacity that takes the issues of today and lays the foundations for tomorrow. This could be through the resurrection of affordable housing projects, investment in homeless issues, or real-time response to natural disasters and emergencies.
The county has 5,700 affordable housing units compared to 1,000 when he first took office. They've also set aside $7.5 million for homeless support services.
Yeah, so there is definitely a lot of information swirling around, especially with the counties and the mayors giving their speeches this week. We are working to wrap all of this, and we'll bring you full versions, full reports on later editions of Hawaii News Now. But now we'd like to get to some other news of the day. Just within the last 30 minutes, we've learned Maynard Milan was indicted by an Oahu grand jury this morning. He's suspected of several criminal offenses, including 1 count of attempted murder in the first degree, 3 counts of attempted murder in the second degree, and 3 counts of carrying or using a firearm. He is being held in lieu of $1 million bail. Now, he is suspected of firing at his neighbor in Ewa Beach. Last week, we had a story there. The family that was shot at was carrying their baby when fireworks were set off, and they confronted him in that Ewa Beach community. And again, we just learned he was indicted by an Oahu grand jury earlier today. The suspect arrested in connection to the discovery of a body in a burned vehicle on the MILILANI High School campus has been identified as 25-year-old Samuel Jones. He now faces a murder charge. The gruesome discovery came after witnesses reported a car fire in the high school's parking lot around 6:40 a.m. yesterday. The fire was out when emergency crews arrived, and within the car, the body of an unresponsive woman was found. A memorial has since been set up for the victim at the site of the crime. The investigation is ongoing. Over on Hawaii Island, police say they're investigating after a body was found along the shoreline just outside of Hilo Bay. The victim appears to be a local man in his 40s or 50s. His body was found around 6 a.m. this morning. Police say there doesn't appear to be any immediate indications of foul play. Positive identification and an autopsy are pending.
New at noon, the Maui Police Department is asking for the public's help in finding David Ka'anana IV. The 33-year-old is wanted on a $50,000 warrant for second-degree burglary, theft, and property damage. We've learned he's the alleged suspect that led police on a high-speed chase over the weekend. He has a tattoo of Ka'anana down his spine, along with a tribal tattoo on his left forearm with the zip code 96793. Anyone who sees him should please call police.
Honolulu Police Chief Joe Logan said the department has received a little more than 800 concealed carry applications so far. Logan added 38 licenses were approved as of Monday. That's up slightly from 3 weeks ago when Logan told the city council that about 30 licenses were granted. Well, the wait list for Hawaiian homelands has long been a lengthy one, and now Native Hawaiian activists are taking matters into their own hands and stepping up their campaign to put more pressure on the department. Rick Daysog reports.
The Ma'ole used a weed whacker this morning to make a path at a 4-acre property in Waianae, which he cleared over the weekend with this excavator.
This land was just wasting away. It's just growing, overgrown with invasive species alongside with endemic plants that's native to Hawaii. And it's sad that they're not taking care of it.
Even though he doesn't have a lease to the property, Manaole says he plans to build a home on the long vacant parcel, which is owned by the Department of Hawaiian Homelands. He also wants to conduct agroforestry farming.
On the bottom, over the bluff there, we're gonna grow ulu, banana, noni, just for starters.
This is one of several vacant DHHL properties that activists are reclaiming. They say this drastic action is necessary due to years of neglect by the DHHL. Other protesters have put up signs like this reclaiming DHHL lands on vacant properties in Kalailoa and on the Big Island.
We're just tired of waiting to die on the list. If we don't take action now, we're going to end up dying. We cannot wait.
I understand the waitlisters' frustrations. The fact that the waitlist is at 28,000, unconscionable.
Interim DHHL Chair Ikaika Anderson says he's also frustrated that properties like this have been allowed to go vacant for years by the DHHL's previous administration.
I'm concerned that there wasn't enough of an interest by my immediate predecessor to put out for lease parcels to our beneficiaries for their business use.
Anderson says he's confident that his successor, Kali Watson, will work with beneficiaries to reduce the DHHL's wait list. Rick Desog, Hawaii News Now.
The Environmental Protection Agency is proposing new regulations to make drinking water safer. Under the proposal, water systems would have to monitor for 6 specific forever chemicals, also known as PFAS. The chemicals have been in the spotlight after the recent spill at Red Hill of firefighting foam concentrate. The water systems would have to notify the public about the level of PFAS in the water and work to reduce them if they go above the standard allowed. PFAS linger in the environment and the human body and can cause serious health problems, and the EPA says the proposal would prevent thousands of deaths due to exposure to these chemicals, as well as tens of thousands of serious illnesses. It would be one of the first new chemical standards that updates the Safe Drinking Water Act since 1996.
Now that the federal government stepped in to save customers of Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank, the next step is investigating to find out why the banks collapsed in the first place. Nicole D'Antonio has more details from Capitol Hill.
CBS has confirmed the Department of Justice has launched an investigation into the failure of Silicon Valley Bank. President Biden hinted at possible investigations Monday while announcing the government is guaranteeing customers will not lose their money.
There are important questions of how these banks got into the circumstance in the first place. We must get the full accounting of what happened and why those responsible can be held accountable. In my administration, no one is above the law.
The Washington Post and New York Times are reporting the DOJ is looking into the actions of senior Silicon Valley Bank executives. SVB's CEO issued a letter to customers Tuesday urging them to not only leave their deposits in the bank, but to reinvest the money they took out over the last week. The criminal investigation is one thing, but there's political fallout to the bank failure as well. And Republicans on Capitol Hill are pointing their fingers squarely at President Biden. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy tweeted that Biden's reckless spending caused record inflation and rapid interest rate hikes that broke family budgets and banks too.
Prior to the bank collapse from last week, people were anticipating a 50 basis point hike again. I think they're now anticipating more of a 25 basis point hike, and some people are actually saying by the end of the year you might start to see some interest rate cuts.
New numbers out Tuesday showed inflation is still an issue, but the February numbers are lower than they were January. Nicole D'Antonio, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
Scandal-plagued Congressman George Santos is running for re-election in 2024. The New York representative filed paperwork with federal regulators today, signifying a formal intent to run, but it doesn't mean he has to. Santos faces federal, local, and congressional investigations into his financial and campaign activities after he was caught in multiple lies about his resume and background. Santos acknowledges his fellow Republicans are urging him not to seek re-election. Safety experts are putting mid-size SUVs to the test to see how these vehicles protect passengers in the back seat. Christian Benavides reports.
The Insurance Institute for Highway Safety sent 13 mid-size SUVs crashing into a barrier at 40 miles per hour. All of them received good marks for protecting the driver in the front seat, but that changed when analysts looked at the back seat. Of the 13 vehicles tested, only 4 models earned good ratings for protecting rear passengers.
That's more or less what we expected.
Raul Arbeláez is vice president of the Vehicle Research Center at IIHS and says the team anticipated those results because this is the first time they've analyzed backseat safety in this class.
We added this test because we have seen both in real-world data and in our crash tests that protection really could be improved in the rear seat.
According to the IIHS, the risk for fatal injury is 46% higher for people in the back of the vehicle.
It's not that the back seat has gotten more dangerous, but restraint technologies have improved in the front.
What is the difference between the protection for the driver than it is for the rear passenger?
One of the things we've seen for many years is protection getting better and better for front seat occupants. We've seen airbags and better seatbelts and improved structure.
He says the safety technology is available to improve the back seat.
With advanced seatbelts and better placement of, say, the anchor points of those seatbelts, we believe that safety really will reach levels that we see in the front seat.
The IIHS expects the auto industry to make those changes in future vehicles. Cristian Benavides, CBS News, Miami.
Let's give you a live look outside. This is our tower cam overlooking Punch Bowl. It is a very different picture than what we saw yesterday. Today is cloudy and rainy, and we do know a front is moving through the islands. It's going to increase our local showers. Be sure to download the Hawaii News Now weather app if you have the chance. We also want to take a look at this picture here. This was sent to us from Wayne Itamoto. He caught this water spout this morning at 8:40 from Papi'i Road. This is in the Eva Beach area, looking toward Kaena Point. As you can see, some wild weather is really popping up here in the islands. If you catch a interesting weather phenomenon like this, be sure to send it to us.
Yeah, all right, time for some good news. A Tampa family is praising a pizza delivery driver who helped out during an emergency. So not only was he in the right place at the right time, but he went the extra mile to show he cared. And it was all caught on camera. Here's Annie Mapp.
90-year-old Annie Goshen went outside to pick flowers when
trying to pick them, and then she fell. She also had scissors in her hand, and she could have fallen on the scissors.
Goshen fell hitting this rock and couldn't get back up. The good news, her daughter PJ says a pizza delivery driver with a kind heart named Joey wasn't too far away.
It restored my faith in humanity.
Ring video provided by Goshen's family shows the driver walking her inside the home after she fell outside.
I'm just glad you're okay. Do you want me to get you any water or anything like that?
Not only that, he called 911 as the 90-year-old was in pain and stayed by her side until paramedics arrived.
And he just held her hand and they talked and they hugged, and I was just very touched.
The fall resulted in a fracture and bruising that left Goshen at an area hospital overnight. Her family fears what could have happened.
Had he not been there, no telling how long she would have laid there, because where the house is here, we live on a dead-end street, and so I don't think anybody could have seen her.
Now the 90-year-old who suffers from dementia has one request.
Hi, Joey. I'd like to see you again. And thank you so much.
That was Annie Mapp reporting. Got to take care of our kupuna.
Yeah, definitely. It shows that there are still good people in this world. And it was unfortunate that she was injured in this, but the good news there being people do still care and keep an eye out for our kupuna. Let's give you one more live look outside. Another cloudy day. It's definitely started with some rain this morning. What about your neighborhood, Ash? Was it raining this morning?
I don't live far from Punch Bowl, so you can see how green it is because we've been having a lot of rain.
Yeah, I actually woke up to the sound of rain earlier this morning, probably around 6 o'clock, and I said, oh, is this a first alert weather day? But right now it is not. We are just keeping a close eye on the front, moving through the islands. Tune in to Hawaii News Now. Ash is back, first at 4 on KHNL. Aloha.